The first question, this is the question 0. Actually, I got lots of tweets and questions. The people cannot attend the airhacks in June because of vacations, or in July because of vacations. And when is the next date? The next date is going to be in December, from December 7th to 11th, and the whole week, because I will also give a JavaScript day and HTML5 day. I have no time for special days earlier, so this would be the only airhacks for winter airhacks for this year. And even more interesting, I forgot to mention that 3 Java 1 sessions were accepted, and one is particularly interesting. So what I did, I got an idea and I registered the first time ever above Birds of Feather session, and the title is Most Popular Java EE Question and Answers from the airhacks TV Live. So actually your questions and my answers, it is going to be live from Java 1. I have no idea whether I will be able to stream, but at least I will record everything I can and then post it later. So this is what will happen after Java 1. And what I will try to do is, to organize some beer if possible. If not, of course not. So we have to we get irregular cola and Coke and water from Java 1. But if possible, I will try to do something. And 2 other sessions: one Nashorn session, and from macro to microservices and back, there's another Java EE 7 session. I will probably code a little bit and implement some stuff on stage. Okay, this was question 0. So the next official question is 20 years of Java. So as you probably know, this week or last week, we celebrated 20 years of Java. For me, it's like two years actually. So I started with Java in 1995, and I'm freelancer since 1997. So I was a freelancer and always stick with Java. And why I also interested in this topic? Because it explains a lot why I, for instance, like J2E or Java EE and not just using each other different framework. And what I did is I looked at the version history of Java from Wikipedia, and it started in 1995, and I started with alpha or beta of Java, and the whole history was I was C++ programmer back then. And someone mentioned that there is an OG or Java, I cannot even remember, as the truly object-oriented programming language. And back then I tried to get the object-oriented programming with C++ right. And I think there was where the templates were about to come out, or at least they didn't work out Linux properly. So I tried to make it run. And then I saw Java, and the first time what I saw was an applet with the Duke. And I was, I don't know, I couldn't understand why it is so exciting, to see animated Duke all the time. But then I stick to Java, and I would say after a few weeks or months, I got the first projects. And they happen to be the mini projects like implementation of a proxy server and an editor. And then around 1996, 1997, I was asked to implement an e-commerce shop. And the problem was I had no idea about CGI, which was very popular, Common Gateway Interface. This was CGI back then. So I used the Java Web Server, and the Java Web Server was the first implementation from Sun Microsystems. And it understood servlets and Java server pages. And we implemented the whole solution with the Java Web Server, and it worked actually great. The problem is we only had servlets, nothing else. So we had to implement our own persistence layer with JDBC and transactions and connection pooling. There was no connection pools back then. So we implemented everything actually. And around 1997, 1998, EJBs came out, which interestingly with POJOs as configuration. So there was no XML, so you had to implement POJOs, little DSL-like language, and POJOs were serialized and then read by the application server. But no one was interested about POJOs back then because XML was sexier. So there were lots of books and resources about XML. So the subsequent versions of EJBs were XML based, and I was not very interested in EJBs because for me it was too complicated back then, particularly with the serialized deployment descriptors, which were really hard to handle. And around JDK 1.1, as you can see, we got Java Beans and JDBC, Java Database Connectivity, and RMI, Remote Method Invocation. So what started implementation of application servers. And what's funny, what I remember with JDBC, we used prior to JDK 1.1 direct, for instance, Oracle or DB2 connections. So you had to use the Oracle connection instead of Java SQL connections, for instance. And and as JDBC came out, I got lots of people of project complained. So why we need JDBC? We have already Oracle and DB2 drivers, and JDBC is not a huge improvement. And what also happened at the same time, JMS came out. I think also around 1997, and there was exactly the same discussion, like why we need JMS if we have already MQ series for Java. I think the library is called client. MQ series client for Java. It was from IBM, and it was similar to JMS but not standardized. So you saw everywhere IBM whatever, and it was of course more powerful than JMS because JMS was just a set of interfaces. And back then I attempted, it was 1997, 1998 to introduce JMS. Instead of using directly the IBM classes, and I always got from developers the feedback, I don't know, we don't need it, forget it. Why you are using GMS if you just can rely on MQ series. And what's funny right now, no one even comes to the idea, or many developers don't even know that GMS is just a set of interfaces and not and not a binary implementation. And this is particularly funny because right now I hear statements like GMS cannot scale or GMS is too slow, and this is completely wrong because GMS are just interfaces. This can be fast or slow. It really depends. The performance and scalability depends on the implementation and not the interfaces. So this was interesting. And remote method invocation, what we did back then, we started to implement our own application servers. We first started with singletons, and then we got some concurrency issues, and then we just do what now all application servers are doing right now. And what also happened, I remember right now, is this AWT. I think prior to JDK 1.1, there was only one event. I think it was called event handler, which handled all UI events. And after JDK 1.1, we got action performed and all these finer events. So this was also a huge story. And of course, we got reflection. And back then also there was a discussion of why we need reflection. What also happened a little bit later, I think around JDK 1.3, JNDI came out, Java Naming and Directory Interface, and this was exactly the same discussion again. Why we need JNDI if we have NDS. NDS stands for Novel Directory Services, and this was one of the I would say main drivers to have JNDI, and as well LDAP, Lightweight Access Protocol. LDAP, Lightweight Directory Access Protocol, exactly. And with JDK 1.2, or 2.0, we got the Java plugin, so for the applets, and Corba was integrated. Collections were huge, so this was also interesting. So back then, we got in JDK 1.1, there was no collection framework, so we used a lot of third-party collection products, and you had to buy them. I actually forgot the name, so if someone knows from chat, please remember me. So it was there were 3 or 4 which we evaluated, and we used them. And JDK 1.2 introduced an own collections framework, and there was the same discussion like right now, right? Why we need collections? We have already so many collections frameworks. So why JDK introduces an own collection framework? And right now, I don't even know whether we have still commercial collection frameworks, or these frameworks are gone. And JDK 1.3. Came synthetic proxy classes, which is actually huge. The modern, most of the modern application servers are using proxy generation based on synthetic proxy classes. There's the class proxy. I think Java Lang reflect proxy, and remote debugging was possible, and Hotspot. And Hotspot acquired, I think, Sun acquired Hotspot from another company, and there was integrated to JDK 1.3. And what it was is like a mix mode. It evaluated bytecode at runtime and decided whether the bytecode should be optimized or translated to native code or be interpreted. And so JDK 1.4 was just a little improvement. So we got logging and XML parsers, and now I think now we have modern JDK. So I would just skip that because I think what we can, of course, mention a little bit, JDK 1.8, which is another revolution. And yeah, this was actually my way of being a Java enthusiast. And what I have to say, so why this, this introduction, this history of Java? Because I get the same statements over and over again. Right now, I got several comments like, why we need MVC, model view controller, in Java 8 if we have Spring MVC, and or VRaptor, for instance, or why we need JPA if we have Hibernate or Eclipse Link. So it seems like you get the same questions over and over again, and a few years later, no one even asks why JPA is suitable, because everyone uses JPA, and less projects are depending on Eclipse Link, Hibernate, or OpenJPA. So this was the 20 years of Java, and what I have to say is Java is still exciting to me. I really enjoy it and a lot, and I learn a lot. And the problem is, Java is so huge ecosystem. So if you learn a particular thing, you will forget something else. So you can learn the whole time. It's like iterative learning, and you're also forgetting all the time because of our garbage collection mechanism in our brain. So it gets never boring. So this was a short introduction of 20 years of Java. I would just briefly look at chat. Nothing in chat. Nothing in the Twitter. So let's do the very first question. And this was a meta question. Oh, by the way, what I wanted to mention as well, the Java EE Bootstrap course, the online Bootstrap course, is the second most popular course after Scala, by Bill Venners and Dick Wall at Parlays, which is also remarkable. Java EE and second most popular course. People tend to to think Java is boring, but it seems like it is actually really interesting and exciting. So thank you for buying the course here. And now, what I'm using for recording, so I got several times this in question, and it really depends. So right now I'm using Wirecast Pro, which is a streaming tool, and I'm recording the screen with it's called ScreenFlow, and I'm using Final Cut for post-processing, and Compressor for compression, and several smaller tools. So there's lots of toolings, and I need all these tools because usually I use the same tooling for my VPN sessions with my clients, so it's nothing special here. I'm just using the same infrastructure. And yeah, I have a green screen. It's not a green screen, it's a green sheet. And I'm not very happy with the green sheet, so I probably will paint the wall green, but I'm just too lazy right now. So this was the meta question. So and now the question, then the real question, the first one is, moving a process from a server to a microservice maybe rest on a live system without impacting the user. So how to do this? So if you would do something without impacting the users, you have basically two possibilities. Or the simplest possible one is to have something like HI proxy or a kind of proxy. And the problem with our proxies is if they fail, everything will fail. So what you could also do, you could have a shared nothing architecture with, for instance, InfiniSpan or a Hazelcast, and store the information on which IP what is running, so you will not have any downtime. But I think without impacting users, so what it could mean, a persistent session. So the main problem of the high availability are HTTP sessions. I try to ignore them in my project. So if what we assume is if the server goes down, the user will have to re-log in. Usually, it's not a problem at all, and the business department or the product owner has to know this. But if you have to have persistent HTTP session, either you will store it into database, which is slow, or you can asynchronously replicate the session, which is fast but not consistent. Or you could use Hazelcast, which is not always consistent, but is usually good enough. So, for instance, if you use Payara, this is the hardened application server, Payara. No, this is Payara. This is the GitHub, but there is Payara COUK. This is basically Glassfish with based on open source infrastructure. So what it uses Hazelcast to store the session information, for instance, in high availability mode. So then it would be more available. So you could do this. Of course, the main problem is, but is not asked here. If you have a monolithic system, you can rely usually on ACID transactions. If you go to the microservice route, there are no more ACID transactions usually. No, usually there are no more ACID transactions. And what it means is you will have to rethink the business logic, or think about compensative transactions. So basically, you will have to change the business logic. So let's see what there are any questions. No questions here. No questions in the chat. Hopefully, I just ask. Okay. So, now is the visibility of instance variables inside EJB. I was taught to use strict visibility as possible. That means in most cases private. Yes, I will also taught this as well. But the question is, what happens if you just skip private? And usually the answer is nothing. So so now we'll complain. And I think Java developers, I never saw that a Java developer will attempt, to access the private fields directly or public fields directly. So they always use methods. So actually, there's not a huge danger in projects. And the reason why I'm using this, you can just try it at home. So I would just install one of my projects, and I would just use the Maven project. From archetype, this is what I wanted to do. And if you go to the BCE archetype, and I would say this is in the airhacks edition, and it will create a sample project with lots of injected package private fields. And now I'll show you the reason why I'm doing this. So let's say boundary registrations. You see, everything is injected, but is not private. It's just package private. Alt Command T, and I'm in the test. And what you can see, I can very easily mock out all the fields. So this is the actual reason. So I'm just not using private because testing is a lot easier. The next question I usually get is, yeah, but you could use, you can introduce constructors and setters, additional constructors and additional setters. But additional constructors and additional setters are additional artifacts which are not needed. And why to write more code if it's not necessary? And I actually never saw that someone attempted to break this. And also, you have to think that the EJB is never injected. What is injected are the proxies, not the EJBs. Okay, so the next question. Do you agree that concept of EJB pool is dead end? This is actually a very good question. The question goes further is if you could use application scope or singletons, it would be equally powerful. And I think it really depends how it's implemented. So what is the big benefit of pooling? The big benefit of pooling is that you have control, about the parallel execution. So what you can easily do, you can put, the additional instances, associate them with a thread pool, and you can configure the thread pool, and of course you can configure the max pool size. So I usually use the pooling to control the maximum amount of parallelism in a system. Or to implement throttling. And without a pool is going to be harder. So you will have to use, properly dedicated, thread pools for singletons or something. So it's going to be harder. And also, I think Red Hat JBoss back then, they did a study about pooling versus singletons, and pools scaled better. So I actually forgot the talk. There was a talk from, I think, Mark Little even, about pooling. It was, 5-6 years back. and they actually proved that pooling comes with scalability and performance benefits. And if you have Whitefly right now and you activate pooling, you will see a lot better performance. So in a default case, if you deploy EJBs, they run as a singleton, so they are not pooled. But if you activate the pool afterwards, you will encounter a far better performance. I will actually write a post about this and measure the performance difference. I actually wanted to do this, but I had no time for this. Okay, I hope answered. How do you test with Archelion arrest JAX-RS method? And by the way, I usually use Archelion just for special cases. I never use Archelion for the usual flow. So I just for usual testing, I always use unit testing for this. But I actually starting JAX-RS with Archelion is actually a good idea to see the JSON structure. So I thought about this is if I start with REST services, it would be actually nice just to have the boundary with the REST endpoints and JSON, and then we could just test the client and see how it feels, and without any implementation of the business logic. So it's actually a good idea. So the answer is I never did this, but I think about this. And what I would do is to start Tommy, even Jetty or Jersey, just use Jersey with nothing else. And then with Archelion, you could just deploy your boundary with mockout or your resource with mockout boundary, and this should work out of the box. In the next open source project, I will actually try it and check it in. So I will write a post about this. So I don't have any examples. What I wouldn't do is to start the full application server just to test the REST. So if you just would like to REST, you could just start REST Easy or Jersey. Should be good enough. So another question, Robert is the long friend of the show. Why you should use WebSockets? And he asked me, there are two ideas: long polling or WebSockets. Why WebSockets are better? So first, what are the disadvantages of WebSockets? The disadvantages are you have to configure the proxies, firewalls, and potentially the web servers to accept socket connections. But the same is partially true for long polling. So what we did, we killed with long polling Apache instances because we are able, the application server was able to handle thousands of blocked connections, but Apache died with too many connections. So it is something similar with HTTP. So what is the main benefit is, if you look at the WebSocket spec, the overhead is negligible. It's like a few bytes overhead per message. In long polling, you get the HTTP overhead, which is orders of magnitudes higher than long polling. When it makes a difference, if you have lots of smaller messages, then WebSockets are way to go. So it's really hard to do it with long polling. Also, WebSockets is a bidirectional protocol, so you can pass messages back and forth. And with long polling, it is actually unidirectional from server to client, and you will need another connection usually to send the payload from client to server. And WebSocket is as well integrated to Java EE security as JAX-RS is, so there's actually no difference. It's the same story. And with long polling, you have always the problem: if the server breaks between the messages can get lost. So you will actually have to remember what you sent to the client, what was the last message, and store it somewhere if you would like to have persistent delivery. And with WebSockets is a little bit more safer because there's no waiting time between the polls. So you can just, if you push it, you push it. So, and you can even wait on the server side until the message arrives on the client. So to summarize, WebSocket is non-blocking. It's a bidirectional protocol. It is Java independent, but really well integrated to Java EE. It's very simple. And the problem is, of course, is a binary protocol, so you have to configure the infrastructure properly. And long polling is basically a hack. So what is a little bit better than long polling is SSE, server sent events. It is like long polling with a predefined format. So you open the connection and you send, I think, semicolon separated list of items. So then look at SSE. I hope so, but from the management perspective, it is hard to argue because managers or higher level product owners don't care about the lower level protocols. So I would say WebSockets is more like GMS topics, I would say. It's very similar, but similar to GMS topics without the overhead of, without the administration or administrative overhead. Okay, question number 8, the next one. And meanwhile, I will just look at whether I have some questions here in the chat. No questions in the chat, no questions in the Twitter. So lazy audience, which is a very good sign because it could be the fastest airhacks show so far. So, since introduction of JSF2.0, JSPs are considered as deprecated view technology. I understand that there will be JSPs come back with MVC0, Slavek says. Yes, JSPs are deprecated because we have facelets in JSF, but JSPs outside JSF are not deprecated. So, and MVC is not JSF. So, someone, is this here? Let's wait a second. No, there are no. One of the spec answered. Wait. So, this from Manfred Riem is the one of the spec leads from MVC says, okay, there are different templating engines like FreeMarker, Handlebars, Mustache. What's that? Time leaf, I don't even know it, and Velocity. So you can use a lots of templating engines. You don't have to stick with JSPs. But if you ask me, JSPs are really nice. So it's not like what's hard with JSPs is if you use the actions, the scriptlets. This is what makes it harder if you implement Java code within the JSP. But as templating language, JSPs are excellent, actually, very easy. You get a really nice support in Netbeans out of the box, like auto-completion. So it's really nice. So I would say JSPs will come back also for other reasons. And the problem right now with single-page SPAs, single-page applications, is that if you push everything to the browser, you will have to the latency is too high, so that it takes too long until the browser is able to create the whole application. So what the major website vendors are doing, they have a hybrid approach where they prepare the templates on the server and send it prepared to the client, and the client just pulls from the server whatever the diffs, whatever changed. And for this preparation, you could perfectly use JSPs. And in some project, we even created Angular services which were generated by JSPs because we have some variants there. So JSPs are actually great. JSPs and JSFs are deprecated. This is right. So perfect. Thank you, Slavek. And now the question, I would like to know what is your thoughts about MVC specification. Seems a little bit late to me, don't you think? And this too late. I had to think about this a lot. Too late, and I have to say it is never too late. So if you observe our IT community, there are really frameworks, tools, and hardware which came really late, and they just won. I remember as the iPhone came out, I hear a lot of Apple is way too late. So the others, big vendors are already there. If you look right now, iPhone is quite popular. And Android was even later. Is still popular, so it is never too late. And in my feeling is it is the right timing actually, because right now we have more. There are enough projects out there which gain experience with AngularJS, Ember.js, JSF, and we can talk a little bit more freely about this. 2 years ago there was lots of religious fights between JSFs and struts and Rails, and now we can just be more objective about this. And the question is, what is the V? This is also interesting. Where the V should be on the server or on the client. And what you should do, look at my interview with Skylight. This is a startup that it was at the Skylight founder attended the airhacks airhacks workshops, and he has really impressive. He has impressive Java startup in Munich, and they use server-side rendering, and the page is beautiful. If you go to the page, it doesn't look like a typical enterprise. Enterprise application is more like typical fashion site. And they use server-side rendering because of SEO, because of the crawlers of the robots. So if you use the view on the client side, it is harder for the Google robot to index the page. You will have to use frameworks like pre-render, for instance, which comes with additional effort. But if you use server-side rendering technologies like Rails, JSF, MVC, you will be, I would say, preferred by the robots and the search engines. So you also have to take this into consideration by developing web apps. So, and the question is about JE versus Spring. I just don't know why I should use JE in my projects where Spring can do the same as JE application. And I get such questions a lot. And remember what I taught you about, JNDI and NDS and JPA and Hibernate. In fact, as JPA came out, the Gavin King of Hibernate gave an interview and said, whenever possible, use JPA. And when we cannot live with a standard, then use Hibernate specific features. And so the question is, why I explain you so much about the history of Java, because as Java E came out, I could rely on a set of APIs. And if you learn these APIs, you will be able to write your application to whatever server you like. So this is actually because you only are coding against the API, and this is a single jar API, and it contains everything. So there is no need, to think about, I don't know, just downloading something. It just comes out of the box, and you just write your business logic, period. And Spring could be a nice implementation of MVC. I don't know whether Spring has interest in implementing the MVC specification. It shouldn't be a lot of effort. It would be nice. But there's another really nice framework, VRaptor, and it also came before MVC, and it looks really nice. And this VRaptor hopefully will implement the MVC standard. So look at this. It's a really nice framework, very well integrated with CDI and EJB. So I tested it already. So it is never too late, and the question is why JE versus Spring is different philosophy. Spring innovates, but it's just implementations, an open source project, and Java E looks at different implementations. And if there are enough implementations, they come to the idea, it would be nice to have an API and just do it. So this is the difference. And the question is why you should use JDBC if you have Oracle driver. It's the same question. Yeah, I'm very happy with Oracle connection. Why I should use driver for name and load the driver connection indirectly if I just could use new Oracle connection and it works the same. It's basically the same. So it's more philosophical question for me, because I stick with Java for 20 years. I would just like to write code against the API and don't bother about any particular framework. But people just look like Spring and don't like the APIs. And of course, Spring and Hibernate, Eclipse Link, VRaptor will be always more innovative and always more will have more features than Java E, because Java E is just an abstraction. So there should be no innovation in Java E, and there is actually no innovation, just abstraction. So we'll briefly look at the questions and any idea on dates for December 2015 airhacks yet? Can't make in July. So this was one of my questions. And what it is. Wait a second. What was it? It was December the 7th to 11th is going to be. So, and this is, I have no question, I don't understand anything, but because I'm starting with Java. Alejandro, why you are not understanding anything? Because I don't showing any code. So usually I code a little bit more, so it is more understandable. This is just short show with question, but it is, it should be better. Nice. So, Someone asked me on YouTube, Adam, is there any way to download examples you show in your videos? Usually not. So I hack the examples along with the video. I don't prepare them in advance. But if I get an idea, whatever is a more mature, I try to publish it to my GitHub account. If you go to GitHub, Adam Bean, for instance, so you can see this is Java example, but here you will find lots of open source projects, and this is what I share if I can. And what I also do, if you go to can I, a little bit slow, and to Java patterns and best practices book and source code, and then hacks, you will find a lots of stuff. If you look for hacks, what I do, I submit, some code snippets from conference talks and sessions, but not from my screencasts. Why? Because usually the code is just, low quality code. And this is also low quality, but people ask me for this. Whoever attends the session would like to download this. So this is the question. And the question number 12. Someone is using the Afterburner, the JavaFX framework. And the idea of the framework is there are actually 3 parts. So we get, let's see whether I could show you this live. New project. And by the way, someone asked me which Netbeans IDE I'm using, because it is able to do a lot more JavaScript stuff. If you look carefully, I'm always use the daily builds because it comes with better JavaScript and HTML5 support and lots of interesting stuff as well. So I barely use the released version. I usually always use the release, the daily builds. The problem with that, sometimes you will see the exception window, if some feature is not implemented, so you usually won't see in the release. Also, someone asked me the question earlier. This is wrong. What I wanted to use is the archetype, and com airhacks is the right name. And there is the igniter, which is a JavaFX sample project. And the question is really interesting, and I show you the reasons in a second. So I try to pull the archetype definition from the internet, and it actually worked. So the question is, I have a dashboard view here, which is usually empty. Then I have a dashboard presenter with dependency injection, which is not empty. And I have the dashboard fxml, which defines the view. And the question is, why the dependency injection does not work in the view? And the answer is, this view represents this. So what it means, it just cares about for instantiating this, and for the layout, for the components. And you shouldn't implement any business logic here. What you could do, you can override some methods. So if I go here and say override method, there could be a method get view, and what you could do is you can add additional components, skin the components or whatever, but it's not meant to implement the business under the presentation logic. And the dashboard presenter is loaded by the view, and if you go here and see edit, you will see the presenter here. So com airhacks follow me dashboard presenter. So they are bound here. There are actually 2 parts which stick together. And the presenter is loaded by the JavaFX runtime, and here the dependency injection is working. So so the idea is this never changes. This is just the FX the scene builder is used for layout. The dashboard presenter contains the presentation logic, and here you can inject the fxml at add inject. And what you inject with add inject is either configuration or the services. So we have 2 parts. Presenter is the presenter or controller. This is the puristic view. There should be no business logic, no injection, and the for instance tower is the service, which is just a pojo. So this is the basic idea, and because both are separated, the idea is, don't implement any business logic here, put the business logic here. Okay, so we are done with the official questions, but not right. So first I have here Twitter. Write your business logic. Exactly. So we covered this, but what I did yesterday, I said last chance to ask questions. And people ask questions. So first question is about Docker. So what Docker is, I will just make the font larger. And he asked me whether I separate data-only container in my case. So on my server, I don't do this because if I started with Docker, it was, I think, the version 0.3 and 0.4. There was no data containers. There was just ambassador pattern, I think, it started, but there was no data-only container. So what I use, I have, for instance, the big container, which in my case on my blog is, I think, Derby. Yes. Derby or Hypersonic? No, HSQL2, there's where the posts are stored. So I have one image called BlockDB, and it comes with the HSQL DB version 2. And it comes with a volume mapped to the host, to the container. So it contains the data. So there is no separate data container. But what is the benefits of having data container, an explicit one? The benefits are you could connect to the same container from other container and use backup, for instance. So it would be better. And I would do it right now. I will use data containers. Another interesting case for data containers are log files. So what you could do, you can create one data container with just called logging, and all containers could use this container for logging. So you have all log files in a centralized place. So it's a good idea. I don't use it yet, but as I mentioned several times, I created a new hardware, a new server, and I'm if I will find some time, I will transfer all my stuff to the new server, and then I will improve all my Docker infrastructure even further. And if you're interested, I can show you something in screencasts or here at airhacks. And this is a nice question. So this is bidirectional reference. So we have address and users have address has users. And as you can see, this is address, name, address ID, and we have mapped by address ID. And the question is why it doesn't work. So or why it does work. So the question, when I start the server and run the project, I get different address ID in the user table when I save the formula. Why? And it works as designed. So if because we have Java EE and we have a great specifications, I look it up and you see the example here. Bidirectional one-to-one relationships. So we have one-to-one get assigned cubicle and set assigned cubicle. And here we have employee has a cubicle, and as you can see, map by assigned cubicle. So you are mapping to the attributes, not to the foreign keys. So what you should do, or to the primary keys, you should forget the database layout, and you should use the relations that map by should refer to the field, not the column in the database, and then it should work. Nice question. This is this one. And this one comes with a little bit longer. The question is one interface, two implementations, and the two implementations have to be switched on and off without recompiling. And the question is how it works. Is it possible? Yes. I even describe it in my book, in the green book, Real World Java EE Patterns. And it is you can do it with stereotypes. So you can have stereotypes and put the alternative on the stereotype. So what will happen then is it will deactivate both sides, but you can reactivate one side in beans XML. And the great story about this is you could have multiple implementations, a whole hierarchy of classes, let's say connection and NoSQL connection and relational connection. Then we have, let's say, connection pool, NoSQL and relational. And then with one entry in the beans XML, you can activate, the NoSQL or the Oracle part, which is basically a bridge pattern for free. So you can absolutely do it. And just think about use and stereotype, put alternative on the stereotype, give the stereotype a nice name, And if you mention the stereotype in Beans XML with, I think, alternatives, stereotype tag, it will work. So, next question is, how can I simulate a Java EE application deployed with Docker on AWS with thousands of users to test scalability? Can you show a practical example? I cannot show you a practical example, but actually what AWS is, there's no difference between AWS and I would say a local Linux instance. So what you will have to do is you will have to prepare locally your Linux image with Docker, which can be installed usually with one command, Docker, and then put your application on it. And then you can start thousands of AWS images, or you can start on one image, thousands of instances. A practical example, I don't have practical example because this is more example about the infrastructure, but we did it for testing. And what you can also do, of course, in Docker particularly, you could start JMeter with JMeter -n in headless mode, and and perform denial of service attacks of your own server. So it is actually easy. If you manage to do this on your local Linux machine, it will should work without any problems on AWS. So what's interesting, I got now a nice question 4 hours ago from Gilbert Toka. For someone who knows Java, works with Spring Data, Spring Security, and JSF, and wants to learn with Java EE but doesn't know where to start. Is your book appropriate? Isn't outdated? My book is not outdated, but I have no idea whether it is appropriate. So if then use the, I would say, real-world Nighthacks is thinner than the green one, and it describes actually my blog infrastructure and why I did particular decisions. It's not outdated, it still works that way. Now it comes with a little bit more features with Hazelcast. I could probably one day upgrade it, but the principles will remain the same. And how to start, what I would do, if you have a hobby, just implement an application for this, whether recipes or running or I don't know what, DVD collection. Just implement a simple application from scratch. Try to use as few annotations in Java EE technology as only possible, and put the business logic there. I think there's the best possible way to learn. And the problem with Java EE, there are lots of APIs, but you don't use them. You don't need everything. If you implement a simple application, you will probably start with this dependency injection, then JPA, and then you are already go pretty far. And I started the Maven archetype, the BCE archetype. Look at this. This is a small best practice how I see boundary control entity pattern. And if you look at this and try to modify this, it's also, I think, a nice way to learn. So what I mentioned, so this is what I started here at the beginning, the airhacks. It comes with testing and comes with registrations applications, a very simple one with REST interface and 2 components, boundary, you have the resource with injection. I will look at this, make it run, and then modify it and try to store something different. So, or add WebSockets to it or something like this. So this is what I do all the time. So don't spend too much time with books, I would say. Hack a little bit more. This would be my my suggestion. Here we just look at the Mycroft says this is useful for load testing with AWS. So there is a block, and there is one client of mine used the loader, I think, or loader RA. Is this? It's also a web testing tool. So there's lots of testing tools for this. So I hope. So the online course. This is what I mentioned. So yes, perfect. And what I found actually, so I will show you at the end. I am here in the virtual machine. Show all windows, and this is the window. And what I was able to launch here, Java Studio. And I don't know who remembers this. And as you can see, it runs like crazy. What's funny was, back then this was one of the first IDEs, like dependency injection, even IDEs. It was connection of Java beans back and forth. And let's see, there are some examples. And you see this is the hot browser, how fast it is. And help about Java Studio. You see it runs on JDK 113, and they were the original engineers back then who created the in 1997. So a piece of history. I would try to find the Java workshop. I have to install somewhere, but this is actually amazing that it still runs, and this is virtualized on my machine, and how quick it is really how quick it is really amazing. So, and you can start with the designing the application. Wow. Let's say, can I just make it smaller? And then what I can do, you can put the buttons and give the buttons a name. And there was a cool pipes actually, data flows, and you can have database beans, and you can create, if I say run it, generate applet application Java beans package design. So an application, finish. So, and this is my application. So I generated, from 1997 and JDK 113 application with Java Studio is one of the first licenses I bought as IDEs. It was Java Studio and Java Studio Workshop with some funny background. So this is a piece of history, 20 years of Java. I will just briefly look at the... No questions there? No questions. And let's see, I just posted to Java. Okay. So I would say thank you for watching, and see you at upcoming conferences, workshops in July, and most of you are on vacations, and the next one is going to be in December. And of course, hopefully the first Monday of the month. So it would be the next month's regular. And send me questions. I will answer them once a month. And thank you for watching, and bye.